So today we're going to be learning about managing your accounts receivable. My name is Lisa and I'm an internal support coordinator with WEX FSM. I want to welcome you all today to the first session of Solution Studios. There'll be 20 sessions in the rotation that will cover different features of the software. The first 4 days of the week will cover different subject features, and Fridays will be reserved for Q&As on the subject matter. To access the sign-up calendar, go to your Help Center and click on the Search for Help, search Solution Studio, and the article will come up that contains the calendar and the previous webinar replays so that you can review them as needed. Remember, these sessions are not a replacement for your customer support. It's kind of like using 911. If you're having an issue, reach out to the customer support right away. Do not wait for a webinar. We have a whole team waiting to help you, so go to your Help Center on the bottom right-hand side of your screen and click Contact Support. Let them know your question or your issue, and they'll be there to help. So how these sessions will work. I'll do a quick walkthrough of how a feature works, then go over a few examples or best practices or how to identify information in your system that might be part of that feature. Then we'll open it up for Q&A. So please put your questions in the chat and we'll try to get to as many as possible. If you need additional assistance, I can assign you to a breakout room at the end. So let's get started. Again, today's subject is managing your accounts receivable. So we're going to go to the reporting section. So this would be under reporting. And one of the reports that we're going to look at is the receivables report. So the receivables report will bring in anything that you have created, an invoice that you have created, and it will give you the status and the balance if there is one. You can sort anything in WEX FSM. If it's a box that does not have a drop down, it's a multi-select, so you can choose multiple different job types. And if it has a caret like this, it's a drop down and you can only choose one item. Also in WEX FSM, anything that is red, you can click on it and it will do something. So if I wanted to just go by invoice total, I could click on the invoice total and sort it up and down by balance. Or I can go in and I can choose everybody from a certain date range that owes me money. Click select and either create a statement or send invoices so that they will go out to the customer on their contact method. If I send the invoices, it will show up here under last notification and there'll be a date. So when you click on that date, if you send it multiple times, you'll be able to see how many times you sent it. If you want to send a statement, you would have to choose one customer and then choose the date range, and then you can send a statement to the customer, and that customer statement will also show under their customer's payments tab. So we've got the report up and we've got this one. So we want to know, okay, this is what people owe me. If you're not seeing something in there, you can go into the invoice list. And see all of the invoices that you have created. They'll have a sync status. They'll also have the amount. They'll have the issue date, and pretty much everything in WEX FSM goes from the date something is created. So the issue date will be the date it's created. If it's a job, the job creation date will be how you would search for these. If the invoice is closed, that usually means it's paid. They have an auto close that will close it out once the invoice is paid. Okay. So the accounts receivable aging report is also the other report that you would need to go over here. So you find it here under accounting and accounts receivable aging. The accounts receivable aging will work pretty much like QuickBooks. So if you have had QuickBooks before, you will notice that everything goes into a 30, 60, 90, or 90 plus day bucket. So you can come in and take a look at this report. Evidently, I'm not reconnecting, and see all of your overdue invoices. Now, when you have this report, you can also compare it to what's in QuickBooks. So in QuickBooks, see this real quick? You can pull up QuickBooks. This is my test account, so it's kind of ugly. You can go into Reports and go to Report Center, Memorize Reports, and go to Customer and do your AR Aging Summary Report. You can go by date. If you're used to working in QuickBooks, you know what you want to look for, but you could come in here and see, okay, these are my 30, 60, 90, and 90 plus buckets. And when you are working in accounts receivable between the two systems, you want these to match. If they don't match, you've kind of got to dig in and find out where the errors are. I'm old school. I'd like to print this out. I'd like to download the other one and print it out as well, and then work through it one by one. Once you've worked through it when you first start and get it pretty clean, you should only have to spot check these every so often. And I'll show you some ways in the system how to check these to see that any item that might be a problem. So if I go down to this one, I see that there's a credit here. And I want to know why there's a credit here. Because if there's a credit, I owe that customer money, or I haven't recorded it correctly. So if I go to this customer, I can see that there's a problem here. I have an invoice that's for $1,780. There's an overpayment of $111.25 because the payment was $1,891.25. In our system, we try to make it almost impossible to overpay an invoice. You would either have to take the invoice with a larger payment, assign it to the invoice, and put any leftover money in an unapplied status. Sometimes, depending on what you're doing or how you're doing it, if you're not familiar with the system, you can accidentally go in and decrease the amount of the invoice that a payment has already been paid for. And this creates this problem. So you would have to go back into QuickBooks and your bank account and find out, did this person really pay me $1,891.25? If it was cash or a check, maybe I transposed a number, maybe I did something else. So you go in and find out exactly what they paid, and then you can edit this payment, reassign the payment. See how it's got an error here? Sometimes this happens because somebody doesn't create a credit to reduce the amount of the invoice. They just change the amount of the invoice and save it, and the payment's already been applied. So you can either come in and fix this or go back and go to the invoice and make sure that the invoice really was supposed to be $1,891 and resolve this issue. But when you see something like this, if you need help, you can reach out to care and we can work our way through it, or you can unassign the payment and find out, is it the invoice that's wrong? Is it the payment that's wrong? Back to the other one, I believe I had another example on here, is a $500 credit on this customer. When you take a payment, you should apply it to an invoice, whether you're processing or recording a payment. If they make a down payment, then there would be this gold bar, which means that the payment is not assigned to an invoice or fully assigned to an invoice because the payment may be larger than the invoice that you actually had for the customer. So you click on the gold bar and you see, oh my goodness, the original payment was $683.65, but there's an unapplied amount of $500. You can click the pencil, hit reassign payment, and see that this was a $183.65 invoice, and it was fully satisfied, but they had overpaid, and there's a $500 credit. So this is real. You know this. So you can either reach out to your customer and say, we have a credit on your account. Would you like me to refund that payment? Or are you going to be having work done here in the near future where we can apply that payment? And then move from there. So your customer in QuickBooks, I go to my customers, should have a credit here also of $500. So you just want to make sure that everything matches between the two systems. So this is how you find an unassigned payment. So let's go to the payment list. So if you have a discrepancy on your accounts receivable or your accounts receivable aging, one of the things that also could be a problem is from the payment list. We saw how on the one customer that this was a $683.65 payment. But if you click the arrow down, you can see that only $183.65 was applied to an invoice, and the other $500 is still available to either refund or to assign to an invoice. If you come to your jobs payment list and you come fairly regularly, should be something you should do fairly regularly, you can come in and remember how I said if you click on the top of a job column header, it'll toggle. If you toggle it up and toggle it down, if there was a payment that was not assigned to an invoice, it will not have this check mark. And you'll know right away, hey, I've got a credit on that customer. And I could come over here and click these three dots, hit edit payment, and it brings me right back to that same screen. I could reassign the payment to a different invoice if there was a credit there or if it was unapplied. I could also come back and refund the payment. Or if I recorded it in error, I could delete the payment. Say I put it in here twice. I recorded a check twice. Or one of my teammates came in here and I put the check in here once and they did it again. So maybe just a duplicate and you can delete it from here as well. You can also take the shortcut, which is the square arrow, directly to the customer. That way you don't lose your place on your report, and come in and take a look at the balance and say, okay, where is it? Why is it there? Is it a duplicate? What did I do? And clean it up from there. Let's see. There's one other report I wanted to look at, which is the job summary report. And let me clean up some of my windows because I usually have about 10 or 12 open by the time I get done. There's the job summary report. Now, if you wanted to see if you had actually billed for a job or not, or had any proposals that were created that hadn't been converted to an invoice, you can come over and search your date range. You can search by job type, leads, job status. Anytime you have the box without the drop down in here, it's a multi-select. You can check flag jobs also. But if you have a job that has a signed proposal, you can toggle this up and down and say, okay, this is my proposal, and see if you have any that doesn't have an invoice. They should have at least a 1 for a signed proposal and at least 1 for an invoice. You can have multiple proposals on a job in our system and multiple invoices depending on what you're doing. So you may see that there is 1 proposal here and no invoice there. That's one of the ways you can check to make sure you're getting paid, because this is what it's all about, is to get paid. So there is the other one is the job summary by appointment. You can also see this as well. It takes a little bit of navigation because it's a little bit smaller, but you can go over to the side and you can see if there was a signed proposal, how many there were, the invoice, and the invoice count. So you can always follow up on all of your jobs to find out that 1, I'm monitoring my proposals, and 2, I've invoiced it, and then your accounts receivable and your aging will help you decide whether you've been paid and if it's in the right bucket and if you match QuickBooks, or if you've not been paid from the receivables and that you need to reach out and get paid by your customer.